Hey there, it's Dana from MadeEveryday.com. Do you have a little bit of fabric hanging around? Maybe a fat quarter of fabric? Looking for a little project? Well, I have got a little bag and it's looking for you. So let's make one. I've shown you how to make a drawstring bag before. In fact, we have also made a drawstring backpack. Both of those are videos here on my channel. But what I really love about this little tiny bag is that the entire bag, the straps and all, are made from one fat quarter of fabric. We're gonna use the whole thing, nothing left behind. That's not a lot of fabric. A fat quarter is roughly 18 by 22 inches. And why is it called a fat quarter? Well, it is the same square footage as a traditional quarter yard of fabric, just cut in a different dimension. Typically, a quarter yard of fabric is cut by a shop from the bolt, selvage to selvage, so you get roughly 9 by 44 inches. When a fat quarter is cut, first the shop will cut a half yard of fabric, then they'll cut that in half, so you end up with a piece of fabric that is a little shorter and wider, but it's the same area as a traditional quarter yard of fabric. This is helpful if you have a project that has something that maybe you need something a little wider than 9 inches. And shops will also bundle up a bunch of fat quarters in a little fat quarter bundle, which is really helpful when you're making a quilt or for other projects. And sometimes you're just left with one fat quarter that you don't know what to do with. There are all sorts of fat quarter friendly projects out there, such as a little drawstring bag, which is what we're gonna make. So let's start cutting. Grab your cute fat quarter of fabric, cut off the selvage, then turn it lengthwise. I think it helps to fold the piece of fabric in half. And we're going to cut 4 strips that are 1.5 by 22 inches. So just the length of your fat quarter piece. And what you're left over with is the body of your bag. Then come over to your sewing machine. I am sewing on my Baby Lock Brilliant. I also have the Joy machine. I love them both. And use a thread color that is going to coordinate with your fabric, or you could use a contrasting color if you want a little pop of color, but this will show on the outside of the fabric. And then press my little automatic needle threader. I love that feature of this machine. Then take your strips and we're going to sew 2 of the strips right sides together at one of the ends. And then we're going to take the other 2 pieces and sew those right sides together at the other end, so that basically we end up with 2 longer strips of fabric. These are going to be the 2 straps for our bag. Come over to your iron and press those seams open. Then we want to press all the raw edges of the strap so that we can sew it all in place. So first, fold the short ends over 1/4 inch, press those. Then fold the entire length of it over by 1/4 inch and press that in place. Do the same thing to the other side. And then press the entire thing in half. Do the same thing with the other strap. Sew a simple top stitch down the entire length of the strap, and I think it helps to put a little pin at the very top. This gives me a little bit of leverage with my hand so that I can kind of help get it through right at the beginning there, since there's a lot of layers of fabric. When you get to the seam where we sewed those 2 strips together, just go slowly, since again, you're going through a lot of layers of fabric. Set those straps aside. They are prepped and ready to go. And now we want to mark where we're going to leave those little openings for the drawstrings to go in and out of the bag. So we're going to start by measuring 2 inches, placing a mark. Then we're going to measure over 1 more inch and place another mark. The 1 inch mark is where the opening is going to be. Do the same thing on the other ends as well. Then take that piece of fabric and fold it up right sides together. And we're going to take our pins here, and I like to mark where that little 1 inch opening was with some pins so that I don't accidentally sew over it, which if you did, it's okay, we can always take it out. But I want to remember that this is where I need to stop and start when I'm sewing. Then we're going to go to our machine, sew down those 2 inches till we get to the first pin, Then we're going to skip the 1 inch and then continue sewing down our side seams. And if you had a fabric that was one directional, meaning the printed design on the fabric runs in one direction, like the cute stripe fabric or this kitty cat fabric like we have here, well, you would want to take this long piece of fabric and cut it in half so that you end up with 2 side seams like we have here, but you'll also have a bottom seam so that your cats are all going in the same direction. Do a forward and back stitch. Stop at that first pin, also forward and back, or back and forward. Cut my threads, love the cutting feature on my baby lock. Move down past that 1 inch mark to the next pin, and then forward and back stitch and sew the rest of the way down. And do a little back stitch at the end as well. Do the same thing with the other side. You're often asking me how you can finish off those seams in your project. Well, for this little bag, we are going to grab our pinking shears, which are those little zigzag scissors, and we are going to trim down both of our side seams. When you have a woven fabric, which means the threads are going up and down, and you take pinking shears, which are cutting on a bias, well, that is going to minimize how much those threads are going to fray. Now let's press that side seam open. I find that it is easier to do this at my ironing board rather than my pressing mat, or if you have an ironing ham or something that is 3-dimensional. It's easier to get around that. You might not be able to get all the way to the bottom, but just enough so that we can press that little opening part flat. Turn the whole thing right side out and continue to press those side seams. It's really important that they get nice and flat for a later step when we box out the bottom of the bag. Then let's make the casing for the bag. First, we're going to press the top seam over about 1/4 to 1/2 inch, all the way around the bag. Then we're going to press it over about another 1 inch. You just want it to go far enough that it's going to enclose that little opening. You can see right here where our opening is. We just need to make sure that this is going past that, so that everything is enclosed in the fabric. It helps to do it at one of the side seams first, and then I flip it over and do the other side seam. And then if I just kind of give it a little tug, the entire casing, well, kind of falls right into place and I can press it with my iron. Now just sew that whole thing in place. Do a little forward and back stitch, and I like to sew as close to the edge of the casing as I can. And there is our cute little bag. We just need to add our straps. So grab a safety pin, attach it to the end of the first strap, go to one of the openings on the side and start pushing it through the casing. When you get to the other side, just continue on until you get back to where you started. And you could just leave it at that if you wanted. Some bags are cute with just one little drawstring, but we're gonna add the second one. So go to the other opening after putting your safety pin on the other strap. Push that through the casing as well. Continue on till you get back to where you started. Even those straps up so that they are the same length. And look how cute that is. That is a darling little drawstring bag. You could leave your bag just as it is. It's adorable, but I like to box out the bottom. I think it just adds a little more dimension. It kind of helps your things settle in the bag a little bit better. So grab your ruler, grab your pen, turn your bag inside out, and we want to make a right angle where that side seam comes together. You can see how I have both pieces laying on top of each other. It looks sort of like a little house. And if I was to peek inside, I could see that my 2 side seams are laying right on top of each other. That ensures that my boxed out area is going to be evenly matched on both sides. I'm going to measure down 1.5 inches from the very tip, and I'm measuring on top of the thread, not on the edge of the fabric. Then turn your ruler perpendicular, and we're going to draw from edge to edge, which should be a 3-inch line. Do the same thing on the other side. Sew right on top of that line. I love this kind of sewing. Makes it really easy. Sew down the other one as well. And then before we trim off anything, and you wouldn't even have to trim it, you could leave it if you want, but I always like to just do a quality control inspection. Make sure everything looks straight. If it was a little wonky, you could take it out and do it again, no big deal. But this looks pretty good. So I'm going to take my pinking shears again, trim off those 2 seams, and let's see how everything looks. And there we go, another cute little drawstring bag. I just want to make drawstring bags from all the fabrics, all of them. For what purpose, I know not, but these are the perfect size for going on a trip, maybe some little socks. Totally, throw it in your suitcase, or maybe you need somewhere to put all of your fat quarters. A fat quarter bag for your fat quarters, totally. You may even see me wearing this like a purse with some, chic little outfit. I don't know, but I hope that you have a lot of fun sewing all the bags. These make great gifts also. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking and just go have fun sewing. And for more ideas, you can always check out my website, madeeveryday.com. And for all of your sewing machine needs, you know where to go. Check out babylock.com, where it's all for the love of sewing. Okay, I will see you next time. Happy fat quartering. That's a verb, I think. Bye.